welcome to our presentation. We're Group 4. So our point of the rubric was that discoveries can lead us to new worlds and values, and they can stimulate new ideas and enable us to speculate future possibilities. So when we break this down, we can get two sort of clear 2 points that we can get from this one initial point. So we get discoveries can lead us to new worlds and values. Well, that sounds like journey and significant experiences. But when we delve deeper into the rubric, they enable us to speculate about future possibilities. Well, that looks like the part of, in our process of departure, the epiphany and transformation paradigms. So the discoveries that we face every day can lead us to new experiences and stimulate possibilities in that sort of impact. So yeah, that's just a breakdown of the rubric points, so the meaning and the thematic purpose. So discoveries can lead an individual to new worlds and values, and by doing that in the motorcycle diaries, we inherently get this understanding through the process of departure in the early stages of the text, in which departure, explored through wonder and enthusiasm, leads Guevara to explore boundless opportunities and his exposure to new worlds and values. So that's the sort of impact of Guevara's departure. So this was the spirit of the dreamer, experiencing an awakening. And that was implicitly articulated by Whittier. And he simply foreshadows the reader and enters them to first experience the spirit of a dreamer awakening. And that notion that Guevara's departure has enabled him to awaken this sort of spirit of the dreamer as he proclaims, this rediscovery of his own spirit. In further, this is devilled on in one of the more important quotes of the text in the process of departure. If you were to make your second theoretical point coincide with your first, the actual point of arrival, don't think about the means, because the journey is an infinite space that finishes when it finishes. That descriptive imagery that Guevara evokes in the early stages of departure about the journey finishing when it finishes shows his universal acceptance to explore the infinite paradigms of discovery and the sort of expectation to go beyond what is known, that limited life in Argentina, and explore these boundless opportunities and new horizons in order to stimulate new experiences and ideas, which later becomes encoded in the later stages of the text in vignettes such as his experiences with the Chilean mine and the firefighters. I know now, by my fatalistic conformity, that my destiny is to travel, or perhaps it's better to say that traveling is our destiny. And that sort of stimulation of a new idea evoked by the process of discovery in terms of departure has led Guevara into boundless a new re-stimulated value for travel, and he's enabled him to explore understand his true destiny for travel. And this becomes later evoked in the later stages of Guevara's life beyond the motorcycle diaries, of that notion of traveling as his destiny, which becomes relevant in his exploration of the Congo and Bolivia, where he coincides with trying to explore, provide a point of view of communism to the world, not just beyond Cuba.
So the stimulation of new ideas in the motorcycle diaries. So ultimately, Shea experiences 6 things that stimulate new ideas. I broke it down into 6 things. There's poverty, discrimination, generosity, sickness, culture, and crumpled civilizations. So we initially see Shea's developing sense of nationalism through his sensitivity to the poor. He uses that image of the proletariat multiple times, and that being a universal image of poverty itself. So huddling together in the desert night, we're a living representation of the proletariat in any part of the world. So you can see there that he's experiencing a poverty that he's never seen before, as he is from upper middle class Latin or Argentina. He then sees a discrimination in the form of the workers at Chico Quemada. So he understands that throughout Latin America there's a lot of discrimination towards the Indian people, the indigenous people, as they're sorely mistreated. But it's culminated in the workers at Chico Quemada who are in a living hell. So here, race and racial discrimination come to the fore, but he doesn't source that to the people of Latin America, rather to those of North America, taking advantage of a poor and dying race, which he refers to as his Yankee brothers. Is that form of racism? And then obviously generosity, Shea realises and notes multiple times that wherever he goes in Latin America, he is greeted by great generosity, whether that's because of his experience as a doctor or just because they're Latin American brothers, we don't really know. But he realises that without that generosity, his journey doesn't exist. It can't go on as for as long as it did. So, and that stimulates the notion of really, really deep patriotism, not just for Argentina, but for a united Latin America, which is ultimately what he strives for and what he fights for. Number 4 is sickness, and obviously I'm not going to talk about the asthma lady because we've heard it a million times, but the sickness that Shea experiences is Latin America itself. She's dying, and he sees her dying in the reference, our distended nostrils inhale the poverty with sadistic intensity. So Shea realises that Latin America itself is internally dying and it's internally ill, and it's because of the things he's seen before, that's poverty, discrimination, generosity, that he's really stimulated by the notion of his country dying, or his place of living dying. And then obviously this is compounded by the culture that he experiences on top of that. So he comes to appreciate other beautiful parts of Latin America. So the sacred lake revealed only a small part of her grandeur. So his ideas of patriotism are stimulated by his vision of united Latin America, which grows from him seeing her in a state of disrepair, but also seeing the generosity that the people living within Latin America show him. And then finally he experiences crumbled civilizations, which, as we've heard before, is a great stimulant in his communist ideals and his ability to fight as a guerrilla warrior. And so he sees an Incan temple toppled by an earthquake, lying like dismembered animals on the hillside. So he uses that simile of animals and a fallen civilization to inspire himself to fight for something that he truly believes in. I had another point, I don't remember what it was though, so I can move on.
Now, with your interpretations, did you come up with these yesterday after we spoke, after you read your feedback, or before that?
After the feedback for
So
most of them.
this far, only one student was able to take on board the feedback that was given. Boys, you need to put in a lot more effort. Some of you have given me crumpled paper, so yesterday what we did in class had no impact on the work that you're putting in for today, and that's not the work ethic we need to see. How did you come up with all these interpretations?
Well, the one I was most proud of, I'll talk about the sickness, the dying Latin America, because we were told multiple times yesterday not to keep using the asthma lady, and also to look more deeply into the text and interpret the speech more deeply. So I looked at, rather than using the inhaling of poverty as a physical symbol of people, living on the streets, I used it as those people representing Latin America itself, and it just took maybe a little bit of artistic license, but at the same time it makes a lot of sense as well.
It's interpretation.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to interpret the text not just as it is. Okay? It's like the rubrics. We said, rubric, if you look at it, it's not just black and white. There's so many ways you can twist that rubric to suit your needs, but you just have to be, I suppose, creative with how you interpret the rubric, and then obviously as a result, questions. James, very good. That I was literally going to punch the air in with excitement, because that's what we need you to move towards.
Honestly, gentlemen, can I see a show of hands of those who went home and changed their work after yesterday's lesson? Be honest. I saw some change in Josh's work to the other position.
And the script shouldn't be handwritten, gentlemen. I've seen it as well. That's just amateur hour. Right? It's a script, type it up, and then when you get feedback, make it easier on yourself. You can change that for yourself going forward.
Although we talked about not focusing on the sick lady, for the second half of our statement, I decided to focus on the sick lady. So this portion of the sentence can be broken down into speculation and future possibilities. In the context of the rubric, speculation is synonymous with hypothesis, guessing, or to wonder or think. In addition, future possibilities can be considered as foreshadowing, anticipation, or potential events and or experiences. By combining both words, we can see that the rubric asks for students to deduce how both the audience and members of the diary entries are able to gaze into the distant future through the use of discovery. In terms of the motorcycle diaries, Guevara muses on Latin America, where the impoverished, the proletarians, can find some dignity, worth, and equality, which serves as a salient example of speculation. Guevara's close contact with poverty, the hungry, the diseased, urges him to be self-reflexive and consider a life spent helping people. This is further captured in the appendix when Guevara says the quote along the left. And Guevara's experiences with poverty, the hungry, and diseased are depicted
Archie, you'll be on time for the train, just slow down.
also depicted within La Gioconda's Smile, which features the encounter with the asthmatic doomed old woman. As you can see the quotes on the right, I won't go through them. And this all leads into this bottom point over here. In addition, these particular experiences led to even more speculation into future possibilities in which Guevara ponders a new way to help people through his personal efforts. The conglomeration of prior events have now led Guevara to muse at becoming a revolutionary doctor, as stated within the appendix, shown there, which then progresses onto his later Marxist/communist ideas that were formulated. This also goes to show what Nathan said earlier when he mentioned that the impact of this point is that it opens a gateway for transformation to occur.
So by breaking down each part of this section of the rubric, we can say that the natures of this experience that Che Guevara has is transformative and confronting. So throughout Che's journey throughout Latin America, we can say that he himself was not expecting the impact it had on himself, as you can see on the left-hand side, or wandering around our America has changed me more than I thought, which is further reinforced with how he acknowledges himself that he has transformed by saying, but I'll leave you now with myself, the man I used to be, and how the transformative impact of these experiences has changed him, which is further emphasized with which is exemplified in his exposure to the leper colony, as well as, again, the asthma lady. So by first talking about the asthma lady, it stimulates that sense of longing for change as well, but also foreshadows the future possibilities of that he wants to force that change rather than wait for that change later in life. And through the encounter with the leper colony with these newfound sense of values, he further applied new values of becoming that person of changing the world.
Okay, so just how did this evocative journey enable Che and Alberto to be immersed in new world ideas and values? So firstly, new values. They learned values of stoicism and enduring hardship, perseverance, and obviously striving through hardship and pain. So by observing the lifestyles of the people who inhabited Latin America, from the Inca tribes at Machu Picchu and also the leper colonies, Guevara was able to observe their ability to strive through hardship, and this persuaded him to believe that anything can be achieved through perseverance. And this is seen when Guevara engages in hyperbole on page 158, I believe. A morbid fatigue and uneasy exhaustion overwhelmed me. I felt incapable of making a decision, but clung to the thought that no matter how bad things became, there was no reason to suppose that we couldn't handle it. Page 153 was the page there. Now, this also brings in the physical impacts, from that the journey had on Guevara, that, obviously he began to tire, the journey had a tiring impact on him, but it also brings in the impacts of the people that he encountered. The people at the leper colony were pretty much suffering from an incurable disease, and I guess their ability to strive through that and to, forget that they even had a disease, to, live through that, I guess that really, enabled him to, strive through and, pursue his goals in the future. So, new ideals. Guevara's observations and experiences has caused him to become a child of my own environment. Ironically, that was the name of his appendix that he wrote in August of 1960. So this is kind of an extended metaphor, given this was the name of his appendix, as I mentioned, and elucidates that his journey and his observation have rather made him a child who's beginning to embrace this new world. And he quotes also on page 167, "The majority of concepts I hold today as a revolutionary were absent from the storehouse of my ideals." This implies that the ideas that he had when he was writing the appendix were not there before he embarked on the journey. The isolated effort and purity of ideals, the desire to sacrifice an entire lifetime to the noblest of ideals, means naught if that effort is not made alone. And Guattari uses aggressive tone right here and suggests that revolution will not work if people do not work together. And finally, this also suggests to the reader that in order to discover new ideals and worlds, they must become like children and embrace opportunities.